you. Have a cupcake. I like you. Have a cupcake. I like you. Have a cup. I like you. Have a cupcake. I like you. Have a cupcake.
I love
that. I like Chili Piper. I like HubSpot. Microsoft.
I was like,
welcome to the Customer Engagement Lab, everybody. Before we introduce our guest, we just want to say thank you. Thank you for even bothering to listen to us. We know you have lots of podcasts that you can go listen to, but for some odd reason, you choose this one. Why? Well, we don't really know, but maybe it's because you need a good laugh or because you want to hear about some wacky sales, marketing, and CS ideas that are going to inspire your own outreach efforts, or maybe none of those things. But if you give even 2 shits about us, please do us a favor. Go to our Apple Podcast page and give us a rating that you think we deserve. It takes 5 seconds. You don't even need to leave a review. Just click the number of stars and be on your merry way. If you screenshot this and send it to us, we'll mail you some PandaDoc swag.
whoa.
If you're in Denmark, we can't mail you a hat because you will be taxed for luxury. But as our guest is showing on the screen right now, you might get a little t-shirt. Little t-shirt swag.
That looks nice.
Bonus swag for posting about our show on LinkedIn and screenshotting it and sending it. Again, thanks for the support and we love you. And without further ado, today we have a guest that really lives up to the name of our show because he's a longtime PandaDoc friend, customer partner, reseller. He probably understands the PandaDoc tool better than Patrick and I combined. And that's because he created HubDo, which is a consulting agency with over 200 consultants and their clients who specialize in building proposals that actually convert, Patrick. Actually convert.
I don't know what that's like.
No, you don't. He created the Proposal Works trademark grid powered by PandaDoc, integrated with HubSpot and most other CRMs. His business provides enterprise seating for PandaDoc at discounted rates and establishes PandaDoc workflows that would probably take most teams an entirety to figure out on their own if they even could.
Travis, how long is an entirety? I'd like to know.
This guest, I'm going to ignore that question. This guest also comes to you with an incredible Australian accent that Patrick and I will try to imitate at some point and will fail miserably. He has a wealth of knowledge on how to get people's attention with business outreach, and he's here with us to chat about it. It's Pete Nicholls, everybody.
Pete Nicholls!
What up, Pete?
G'day, guys.
G'day.
I don't appreciate
G'day.
your questions, by the way.
Do you want me to put a shrimp on the barbie for you?
Too early for that.
To answer your questions, I don't know the thread count of that t-shirt that we'll be sending to our guests who give us a rating or who post about us on LinkedIn. But Pete, one of the many reasons we were excited to bring you onto the show today is because you have a lot of proposal writing expertise. And about 2 months ago, you posted on LinkedIn about a webinar that you were going to be involved in with 10 things proposal experts do differently. So without further ado, let's just jump right into this. And I'm going to pull up the post. So I'm just going to read the post real quick, and then we can dive a little bit deeper into it, Pete. But most proposals are written by smart people who simply never studied what professional writers do. And as Daniel Kahneman wrote, what we see is all there is. So let's fill in the gaps with what is missing in most proposals that a pro writer would always include. The result takes less time, looks more professional, and is easier to close without leaving money on the table. We have proposals that we use here at PandaDoc. We have hundreds of templates that we give away for free. But what are some of the things that somebody who's listening to this, whether they be in marketing, sales, or CS, what are some common mistakes that they're making and things that they just could do better from a proposal creation and sending kind of standpoint?
Actually, I've seen the PandaDoc proposals. The proposals that you guys send out are really good. Like they're short, but they've got a lot of the things in there. I think the 7-page count is like the optimum for you guys, that the proposal with 7 pages closes best. But the proposals that I see that a lot of the people that use your software do aren't that great. I think the main part that's missing is that they don't put any value up front. They just talk a lot about what they do, That's the biggest gap. They can talk forever about what they do, but they don't relate it to value. They put hourly rates in there, which I hate hourly rates anyway. That's another topic. So the whole section at the front of the proposal is missing because it's not putting it in the context of the customer value before they get into the detail of what the customer is going to get.
I can tell you when I look at proposals, whether that be so right now I'm in the midst of planning a wedding. And so I have all these vendors that are sending me proposals. None of them are using PandaDoc. And the first thing I just scroll to is the pricing page. Like everything else is just like, it's like when you're trying to find a recipe on Google and the blogger decides to write their entire life story before giving you the recipe that you were looking for. Patrick's nodding. He knows nothing about this. He doesn't cook. So, but yeah, I think how do you recommend people put value up front? What does that look like? Does that mean just shifting the pricing table to the very first page? Like, and what does that mean to you, Patrick?
I don't know. I mean, my biggest issue is I see people just put the contract right in the middle of a proposal, which to me makes no sense. Like they'll be scrolling down. It's like, all right, here's what we're going to do. And then 30 pages of legal terms. And then at the bottom underneath it, here's the pricing that you were looking for, when you could just link away to a landing page.
Yeah. Actually, with PandaDoc, you can add legal terms, MSAs as attachments.
Also attachments, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting idea. Put the pricing up front. Trouble is that the pricing isn't the value. Ooh. Like it's just what it's going to cost them to buy whatever you're selling. Sure. So I think that's a bad proposal. Actually, doesn't start at the proposal stage. It's further back in the sales cycle. They just haven't figured out what the customer needs solved, and is there any value for solving it for the customer? Like, is it one of their top priorities, or is it something that they've educated the customer? You have this problem and you can show them that this problem exists. If you can't wrap any value to that, and it's actually the customer is the only one who knows the value anyway, you can maybe try and discover that. But I had one just last week, for example. I'm doing some consulting for PandaDoc, actually. There's a company in New Zealand, and they do a lot of certifications. It's around food quality. And so they're combining PandaDoc with HubSpot to send out these certificates. And so through a short conversation with the guy's name is Grant. So talking to Grant about, well, how long does it take you today to do up these certificates and to do these food certifications? We quickly figured out that he could save around 120 hours by moving it onto PandaDoc per year, which to him is about $12,000. So we'd say, okay, well, the value to you is $12,000. These are your numbers. Does that make sense? Yeah, great. Okay, well, this is what it's going to cost to put you onto PandaDoc, which is a fraction of that. So to my mind, the value in that case is $12,000. That's what it's worth to him. They're his own words. We're taking a portion of that. And I just think business's job is to create value. But you've got to figure out what value you're creating in the customer's terms. Then your price compared to that value is going to be less, or at least it should be less. Otherwise, the customer loses. That's the part that's missing, is there's nothing about what the value is to the client. It's just what you're selling and what it costs.
I like that. And as I was asking the question, I was thinking about a couple conversations we've been having on this podcast. And, the self-value, right? Like that's what everybody pushes. But I'm glad to hear that Pete almost like deflected and was like, it's not just about the proposal. It starts earlier in the sales process. And I think about like on our last episode, we have one of our own SDRs show us an cold outreach video that she was working on, and get some coaching from Jason Bay and Patrick on it. And we were one of the first questions that came out of, I think either Patrick or Jason, was like, what do you want them to do? And what do you want them to feel? So good job on that.
Yeah.
It aligns nicely.
Yeah, because we do the executive summary thing where it's like, so what I'm hearing is this is your current process. These are the gaps. This is where you want to go. And that you're hoping PandaDoc can fill this gap by doing this. And then you'll see this result. And like, that's our executive summary. But if you don't do proper discovery, you can't write that. Like you would just be making it up.
Yeah, you've got to discover the gap either they already know what that is, but often business owners don't. They're so busy in the business. They know they have a problem, but they haven't really costed out what that's draining from them in terms of funds or whatever the missed opportunity is. So that early discovery, you're often helping them put some numbers to it. Either they are the decision maker, hopefully you'd be talking to the person who's holding the budget, or they need to justify it to their boss who is the decision maker. But either way, if you can't put any tangible value to that, then what do you anchor your price to? Like your price just has to stand alone. It's a cost. You haven't put any value around the problem that you're solving.
And when you said you're talking to the person that's holding the budget, I just get so excited. I was like, you don't want me talking to that person. That's over.
This is a good time to transition. I actually wanted to pull up the PandaDoc commercial sales proposal, the template that we use and we send out to people who want to buy PandaDoc. And then I was hoping that we could just kind of dive a little bit deeper into it. And I'd love to hear, Pete, if you have any feedback on like what we're doing well with it, maybe points for improvement, because I think about who creates these templated proposals that we use to sell our own software, and it's going to be people on the marketing team. And so I think it's valuable for marketers to be listening to this right now and understand like everything we were just talking about might sound a little bit foreign to them. Like I was a little bit lost as I was following you guys. So I think a good example would be to just like, let's pull it up and talk about it.
Surprisingly, the best parts for a proposal, like the value part, like that was created by marketing. You're not giving yourself enough credit.
I didn't do shit. It wasn't me.
It's probably like Gores or somebody.
It's probably somebody that's way smarter and more talented. All right. So Pete, can you see our approved PandaDoc enterprise plan proposal?
I can. It's in editor version 2. It's a beautiful thing.
It is. All right, let's scroll through this bad boy. And just looking at the cover page here, we've got some variable tags where people can automate how they add in some account information, the client information, who it was prepared by. We've got some beautiful graphics.
It's traveling through space and time.
A document that's traveling through space and time.
Is it a wormhole?
We've got our table of contents as page 2. Again, with some variable tags in here, some nice kind of graphics that are branded. I like the hair there. Customized solution for account name.
Go up a little bit. See that little photo thing?
Yep.
That's where you could put the logo for your customers. So like when I'm on the phone with people, I'll pull up their website, screenshot their logo, then I'll pull it up on the fly and add it right there. And I'm like, bam, that's how easy it is.
Yeah. And actually now we have a Zoom integration where you can, on a Zoom call, just pull out a proposal right there, start working on it.
Still trying to figure that out.
That's okay.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. I haven't tried that yet. I saw the announcement. Sounds good.
And then we'll scroll through here before diving into pricing. Here's a brief summary of the project goals we discussed. We've got a bunch of bullet points here. Then we jump into this page with a case study from one of our customers over at Verified First. We talk about what competitor they were using, what tool before previous software is used, and what CRM they're using. A link to the full case study. And then just some social proof as we go deeper into here of some of awards that PandaDoc has won. And then we get into some statistics and some numbers here. We have a graphic that shows the number of customers that are using PandaDoc, who are backed by, again, just kind of more social proof. Document assigned with PandaDoc every 7 seconds. And then we finally jump into the pricing overview and the pricing table here. And at the end, after the pricing, we have our security, where we talk about like our HIPAA compliance, our different certifications, questions that come up often, especially at the enterprise level. And again, keep in mind, this is our PandaDoc enterprise plan that we're going to be talking about here. And then we've got some fillable fields, the address, the account name, the e-signature block, the date, and then an option to add in payment details, pay by credit card, check, wire, ACH. And that is our proposal. Thoughts?
So first, I mentioned I do like the proposal format from PandaDoc because I think to me, it's a good middle of the road suited document in that you've got a document that's trying to be all things. for you take a generic deal, a little bit of personalization. So for the average deal that's being executed by BDR, posted across to the sales rep, or sales reps doing outreach, found an opportunity. Somebody has that problem. They know they have the problem. Great, we can easily fix that for you. Here's a proposal that shows you what you get, what the price is, and that's probably got a good chance of closing. It's when you're in a deal where this needs to be justified as an investment by the company. So you're anchoring it to something. What do you anchor it to? And that's the part that I think is missing in this document, is if I'm in a deal which is next level sell, where PandaDoc is maybe not even standalone, it's part of an overall solution, that you're going to tie it into some initiative that the customer has. Value, when you say sell value, the audacity of thinking that we know what the value is, we never know what the value is. You're not actually selling value. You're always hunting for value. You're mining for value. So in the exploratory call, you figure out what's the value of fixing this problem. And that's where this template doesn't have the spaces to put that in. So if it was a value-based proposal, then the cover page wouldn't say proposal for company X. You would actually have the heading would be the problem that you're solving is right on the front page. So you're anchoring to the problem that they know is costing them thousands of dollars in costs or lost time. So cover page is where I'd start. What's your thoughts on that?
I'm just curious what other sections you would add to help tie it in maybe to an overall solution, or just be more like problem centric in general.
Yeah, there's a few things up front that are fairly standard in a bid. If you're submitting an RFP response, that you're probably going to have a cover page and maybe an executive summary. So there's usually a lot more documentation there. So the number of sections you'd add in a big proposal response like that are quite detailed. If you boil it down to this, which is still a proactive proposal, it's not a RFP response, but some of those sections still apply. So number one would be the executive summary, but in a smaller proposal, that might sound a bit over the top, executive summary. So it could be situation analysis is a simple one, where you're just reflecting back, look, we heard you. This is what we've heard is your situation. This is where you want to be. This is where you are now. This is the gap. So we understand that there's a gap to jump. We also understand the positive implications or the negative consequences of not jumping that gap, because there's got to be a compelling event. If the customer has an option to do nothing, then that's probably what they'll do. So you're reflecting, we've heard you, and we also understand the importance of doing this, where this sits within your organization. So that could just be under situational analysis. You might do a subheading of the reason for change. If you really want to call out, guys, you've told me this is really important for you in your digital transformation or whatever the hook is. And then you'd have a heading related to value. So that's where your heading is your challenge to the writer of the proposal of, what am I going to say here? I have to have figured out what the value is, and I can't make it up. It needs to be reflecting back to the customer what he's already told me. Like in the proposal back to that grant in New Zealand that I mentioned, we need to have already had the conversation of what the value is. He said, yeah, that's probably worth $12,000 to me. So in the value section, I say, Grant, this will save you 120 hours. As you said, it's about $12,000 a year that you'll save. So that would be the next subheading. Those two alone are probably the two killer things to add in before you then go into, here's my proposal, and look at it. Compared to the 12,000, it's tiny. So ROI is obvious.
And I really like that situational analysis section. I feel like we just signed a proposal with a video agency that's been working on some cool videos with me and Patrick. And I want to say they did have that. It was just a couple sentences reflecting on the discovery call they did with us. And just like you said, it was reiterating what our need is and how they want to try to solve that. And I was like, damn, that's pretty cool. I tend to shy away from like big bulky text in a proposal as a viewer. I'm like, nope, my brain just wants, like you said earlier, as you were talking, Pete, where you were like, if there's an option to take no action, that's probably the route they'll go. Same with like long text. If there's an option to not read long text, my brain will be like, nope, scroll through that. But they kept it short and sweet.
It's important to add visuals too, I think. Like if you're doing like metric implications, hey, maybe a chart or a graph to break up the text.
Yeah,
helpful because people aren't going to read 3 paragraphs.
Yeah, I like our use of charts, graphs, and graphics in our proposal to keep it nice use of white space. If we're talking from like
It's very abstract too. Like there's dimension hopping. There's a woman with the beehive hair.
There is.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on in there. The PandaDoc connected universe is very confusing.
I think there's good use of like text hierarchy too. Like you have a headline 1, you have smaller text to call attention to certain things. I do like the idea, and it's an interesting one. I don't know if it would work for a sales organization like PandaDoc. And this is where I wanted to like ask you, Patrick, is like what Pete said is like instead of proposal for account name on this cover page, if it was like, let's say the scenario is I need to speed up how my sales organization, which is small, it's only three people, are sending out proposals and using our CRM, because right now they're just creating stuff with a Word document template that I created. So like, how do we boil that down into like a title on a proposal cover page?
Getting your reps back to prospecting faster.
Ooh.
Probably something like that. But I'm immediately thinking I want to start implementing that. That was the major thing. I'm like, oh, I could do that easily. If we just changed the proposal to like a variable that was like problem we solve, and it's a variable, you could just type it in. That would be awesome.
I feel like some of the problems, like what Pete was saying is like, we actually have it on that page 3. Streamline quote, proposal, and contract management processes. Here, I'll pull it up again just so we can all look at the same thing. Pete's like, what are you guys looking at? But like if these are the
the bullet list
that we're fixing, maybe just grabbing one of them, like improving communication, so you can have improving communication for account name.
Yeah.
Or it's something like saving time and increasing productivity for account name.
Yeah, I love it.
Damn, look at Pete coming in here. Shopping.
Yeah, you're right. I would just put the solution on the cover page. So in Grant's example, it would be save time or time saving solution for XYZ. Whatever the biggest hot button is of the solution, whether it's streamlining, saving time, you want to look more professional. Further down in that document, you have the bullet list. And I like the fact that it says, here are the topics that we discussed, or something of that nature. But I would bet that very few reps would remove items off that bullet list. You're saying, here's the items that we discussed, but do people actually remove the ones that weren't discussed?
They're instructed to.
The most political answer I've ever heard from you. They're told to, whether they do that or not. I would also bet, Pete, that your bet is correct. That many do not.
No comment.
Patrick always does.
Opposite this time.
Our enablement.
Well, look, to be honest,
like, damn it, Travis and Patrick.
I wouldn't remove the bullet points that are there based on it would look probably pretty thin and maybe a bit lame if it only had a few bullet points, because they are just bullet points with no extra context, that it's really looking like a short list. But is this template designed to be used in competitive bids?
No, like most of our teams are very transactional. So like they're actually pulling it up on the phone and trying to get it closed while they're talking to the person.
Right. So they're not up against a PandaDoc competitor in what this proposal is meant to convey.
Occasionally it could happen in some of our longer deals, because we do have teams that do like enterprise and mid-market. So in that case, we do have stuff in our content library that you could add that are like battle cards if you're going up against something like DocuSign. Like, what are the differences? What are they better at? What are we better at? Kind of thing.
Yeah, the one I pulled up and showed with you guys today is for our commercial team. So what kind of deals is the commercial team usually processing? More of the transactional type, or more of these like bids?
A lot of it's inbound. A lot of it's like, hey, I came in. Hey, I need PandaDoc. Show me it. Okay, cool. Can we sign up? Awesome. That's you just send them this, and
it's important context to have, like,
yeah,
because we have different. I'm looking right now. We have different ones for our enterprise team, our business plan, commercial team, using kind of different templates. So
it's actually got me thinking a lot.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, maybe we should get more like specific about the kind of team and the template, because they're all pretty similar.
In a bid response team, because that's where, like, I'd like to say I made this stuff up, but I'm a member of the APMP, which is the Proposal Managers Association. And so these are best practices. People far smarter than I have come up with methods over thousands of bids of what you do in a proposal to cut through. And so they use terms that you don't often hear outside of proposal teams, like not only knowing what your differentiators are, but what your discriminators are. Is that a term you guys know?
What do you mean?
Yeah, elaborate on discriminators. I think I know what you mean, but I want to make sure.
So the differentiators is a common one of, you know, what's different about your company and what you do and what you offer. But that is not in the context of the customer you're talking to. They're just your differentiators. The discriminators is where you've tapped into the customer's problem and you've found individual hot buttons and it matches one of your differentiators. And if those two match up, then bam, particularly if your competitors can't do that, that's a discriminator.
That's not what I was thinking. So
Kind of like a unique selling proposition.
It is, but it's unique to that one customer.
Yeah.
It's a win theme with that one customer.
Term before, discriminator. Have you heard that?
I haven't. So let's say, for example, one of our differentiators compared to a tool like DocuSign is that we are more affordable because we don't have envelope limits.
Yeah, pricing model difference.
So we have a pricing model difference. How would we use that as a discriminator in a specific situation?
Schools have to budget out 1.5 years. And with DocuSign, because it's based on envelopes, people don't know how many documents they're going to be sending in 1.5 years. So if that's a specific problem for like a school board in particular, I'd say that would be one. Where it's like, we don't have that problem. You don't have to price out per envelope.
So anyone who really cares about the pricing of this, price is always important, but I guess as you guys know, pricing is usually not the primary reason for what they choose. There's other factors, but it could be important. It's what value are you creating, but you need to bring that out. So how do you work out whether to feature the price differential in there? You probably want it in the proposal, but do you put it as number one because you think it's top of mind for the customer? You won't know unless you ask. So I know whenever I'm talking to someone about PandaDoc, either it's inbound or somehow we've ended up talking, and I'll say, well, there's 6 or 7 main reasons why people look at putting in PandaDoc. And they're usually talking to me about putting PandaDoc in with HubSpot because our name HubDo comes from everything we do generally is on HubSpot. So PandaDoc with HubSpot, let's look at what matters to you. Most people come to me because they want to spend less time doing their proposals, or they want to look more professional, or they want it just to be easier to close. They want to streamline the whole process. They want to embed video. They want to switch to selling value. If I run those hot buttons past the customer, generally they'll say, oh, 1 and 2 and 4. Like they'll tell me which ones stood out for them. I'll no longer talk about 3 and 5 and 6. I probably won't even put those in the proposal at all. I only put in the ones that got their attention because that's what they care about. And that's what I'd feature. And then I wouldn't just feature it as we do this. I would put in a 4-pack, which is the things you put into a proposal to match with a discriminator. If they've said, I want to save time, which for Grant, we've mentioned a few times, was a hot button for him. How much time do we save? That's where I take the data from PandaDoc saying, well, save 65% of the time it takes to put a proposal together. So A, hot button, you've said you want to save time. B, PandaDoc does this, it saves 65% of the time. How does it do that? Content library, other things that we can put in there as to how that's possible. And then D, the fourth one, here's the proof. Here's company X, company Y, company Z that are each saying how much time that they've saved. So that whole little pack is all related to the hot button. I put in 1, 2, or 3 of those packs. And I've only talked about the things that he told me what was important. And then after that, it's just a price table and a signature.
That's just good sales advice.
Yeah.
Honestly, even if you didn't even have a proposal, like if you could get that out of a conversation. Love that.
I think people on the marketing team could benefit from listening to that exact segment.
I was gonna be like, that's the clip, right?
Yeah, because we're writing the copy that goes on our page, and we're writing the copy that goes in these proposals, all of the content we're putting together. Like, that was a golden nugget. I'm gonna have to replay that for a lot of people.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you, Pete.
Pete,
Sure.
let's jump into something that caught my attention. Another post of yours, because you were talking about Lord of the Rings. Now you have your own podcast called Proposal Works, and I was listening to a recent clip you posted, and let me play it for the listeners here. I'll pull it up real quick.
We made the client Frodo, and we were Samwise, and everybody knows that Frodo's the hero of the story, but there's no way he would have made it to Mordor without Sam. So it worked. That was the first successful proposal they'd had with this client in 10 years. And they got a contract with him and are able to start rebuilding that client relationship. And it was just flipping the story on its head and taking that approach specifically of how do we tell this story.
That's a fantastic story. I mean, well, I was joking before around the Disney character name, and yet you do weave the stories in. So there's a Lord of the Rings theme. So Frodo was the customer in this situation, probably a little more sustainable than the most of the characters around Mount Doom. And I guess it resonated that, well, it sounds like it stood out to them because he had been trying for so long to get back into that account and nothing was working. And fundamentally, you changed the game with.
Okay, so that caught my attention for so many reasons, mostly because I'm a Lord of Rings nerd. But can you give us some context and background information as to what you were talking about? And let's dive a little bit deeper into it.
Yeah, it's always puzzling as to which clip to include when you have a podcast episode. So that was Rochelle Ray in the US. So I think it's probably 6 weeks ago that we had that discussion. And Rochelle is a full-time proposal writer. That's all she does. And they are all RFP responses. So they're usually pretty big ticket bids. That Rochelle, I was amazed by what she had achieved by turning it into a story about the client. So we were exploring how Rochelle, she was taking clients where they either were putting bids into customers where they used to win, but for some reason now they're not. The deals just aren't coming off like they used to, or there's new accounts that they want to break into and they are putting bids in and it's just going nowhere. They're just not getting past the first cut in the shortlist. And so she decided to try something different, which is to look at the customer situation, make the customer the hero, and weave this story win theme through the proposal. And Rochelle is a consultant, so she's writing for her clients. Her clients are in the CAE, that construction engineering architecture space. So we were exploring how she, as you imagine, to start with, most clients were like, I don't want to go near story writing. This is proposal. This is serious business. It all has to be so straight. But she had some open to giving it a try. And so the story she was sharing there of one instance where this customer had been trying to get back into an account and then she spun it a different way. They took what the customer was trying to achieve and put a Lord of the Rings theme to it. And customer loved it. They won that bid, but it gave them the ability to bid on much larger opportunities and got the customer back in there just through storytelling.
What my first question is, what if this person didn't even know what Lord of the Rings was? Would it have flopped, do you think? Like, how did she know to do that? Because I could see somebody stupid like me being like, let me give this a shot, and doing like a Harry Potter reference or something. And people are like, yeah, go put that away. This is the table for the adults.
It's a gutsy move.
Yeah.
I think they placed a bet. They were just placing a bet. It's like, well, our track record here is so low. Whatever we put in, we're not really expecting to win anyway. So let's try something. Let's give it a try. I guess experiment and fail fast, but it happened to win. So I guess you remember the stories that won. I bet there's a few others that probably crashed and burned and didn't make it. But she's turned it into a bit of an art form. You probably want to test the ground of who you're bidding to. But that was a pretty extreme example. The Lord of the Rings one was,
I love it.
Maybe really pushing the boat out.
Yeah.
Isn't Lord of the Rings one of the most popular stories of all time, though?
So
I feel like if you're going to make a bet,
make it on that.
It's like one of the most read and watched fantasy properties ever. It's not like you're doing like a Dune reference. Yeah, are you on the spice planet of Kessin? I was wondering when you were gonna do that.
Saving that impersonation.
That was pretty good, but it was wet.
We may have to bring Rochelle onto the show and ask her to show us that Lord of the Rings proposal if she can. Might have to bring her onto the customer engagement lab. Pete, I'd
recommend it,
because we're all about finding creative forms of outreach and breaking through the noise, and that is definitely a cool way that she did it. All right, so to wrap things up, this show can't be complete without showing at least one TikTok. We love
TikTok crazy.
We love to show our guests TikTok videos. And this is one that was actually created by our very own Patrick Downs. And Pete, we thought of you, or at least I thought of you when I pulled this one to share, because you're somebody that deals with a lot of business tools, a lot of CRMs. And I thought this one would make you smile at least.
You have a cupcake. I like 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 you have a cupcake.
I love that. I like Chili Piper. I like HubSpot. Microsoft.
I was like, what's the most punchable tool? Like nobody would get offended at me saying that. Like if I was like, man, HubSpot, somebody would be like, yo, HubSpot's sick.
How dare you?
Nobody will defend Office. Nobody.
We love to hate Microsoft.
Yes.
Yeah, we definitely do. Pete, thank you for coming on to the show.
Thank you, Pete.
We appreciate you. How can people find you, and what can we plug for you?
Well, people can find me on LinkedIn. So thanks so much, guys, for having me on the show. Just look for Pete Nicholls at HubDo, HUBDO, because we do HubSpot. So it's HubDo. I would just plug that. We do sales enablement tools. I think we're up to about 260 folks on PandaDoc now running on HubSpot. So if you want to make PandaDoc or Chili Piper or any of those sales enablement tools run on HubSpot, then give us a shout. We'll jump on a call, talk it through, find some value.
I love it, mate.
I'm not doing that.
Come on, you can do it.
Okay, mate. Let's roll off then. That's British. I tried to do a British accent last week and it came in Australian. I just did it vice versa. All right, mate.
Practice on the car words. You do car park, cardigan. Get the car
I'm
words.
from the Boston area, so I just ended up slipping into that. Pack the car. Yeah.
Would you prefer
it's not bad.
Button-up cardigan?
Yeah, pack the car in the car pack. It's wicked.
Pete, can we
Slightly
get you
South
to
African.
do a Danish impersonation, or are you going to hold that for later?
Oh, wow. Yeah. So I've surprisingly found myself living in Copenhagen. So I could say, "Jeg hedder Pete."
What does that mean?
So that's my name is Pete. So a lot of words have a D in them, but it's a soft D that is meant to sound like an L, but you have to say the L without your tongue touching the roof of your mouth. It has to stay down. So it's "Jeg hedder Pete." It's like "Jeg hedder," but if you say "Jeg hedder," they won't understand you. It's "Jeg hedder."
You sound like a hippie there, actually.
Well, if you Google Christiania, half of Copenhagen is hippies. So probably something.
That's why.
Oh,
okay,
there we go. That makes sense. Well, Pete, thank you again so much for joining us on the show. And any final words, Patrick?
We're halfway through the year. Like right after that, right? What is it? August now?
Mm-hmm.
Who cares what time it is in the year? I certainly don't. But let's look back and look at our friends. How much friendship have we had this year?
A lot.
A lot, right?
Yeah. Pete's a friend.
It's easy for me to wake up and be like, I got to go drive to the studio today. I'm so tired. But then I'm like, I get to go hang out with Travis and Pete.
Yeah.
And it's so nice.
Yeah,
and I'm hearing a lot of complaining right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm saying this. So it's like, everybody just look at what you really have. There's something beautiful in your life. Find it and embrace it.
We're giving you
The friendship cup is running over.
Friendship hugs.
Yes. And if there's nothing beautiful in your life, text me. It's on my LinkedIn profile for some reason. I just put up my phone number. We can chat.
Alrighty. Love it. Always a beautiful ending. All right, Pete. We'll catch you later, man. Thanks again for joining us.
Thanks. Pete.
Thank you, guys. See you soon.
Thanks for hanging out with us today on the Customer Engagement Lab. For more of Travis and Patrick's chaotic energy, subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast player. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, you would make our hearts smile if you left a super quick rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the show deserves. It'll take you 2 seconds, I promise. Till next time.